Also, the VHP have started a process of conversion. So we've heard of that. Grahavaspi, the homecoming ceremony. So Praveen Togadia, as you may have heard of, made the claim, our aim is making India as Hindu country as it was once upon a time. Now, to me, that doesn't sound too different from the claim of Christians going to India saying, we will make this a Christian country as it should have always been. Right? So I'm just saying the claim, it's interesting that once upon a time, India was a Hindu country. But interestingly, the further back you go, the less Hindu it was. I mean, the word Hindu didn't even exist in actual fact if you go back far enough. And if you go back far enough, it was a Buddhist country. You know, the subcontinent was mainly Buddhist, and it wasn't even Hindu at all. So, and at a certain point, it was Vedic, and it's even questionable if Vedic is kind of Hindu in the ritual sense and all that. So, and then in the Hindu in January of this year, we have a quote from the VHP. We have set a target of 1 lakh reconversions before the 1000th birth anniversary of the Vaishnavite philosopher Sri Ramanuja in 2017. And this is the beginning. This is a mission. This is missionary work, right? So we're going to reconvert people who have been Christians or Muslims and all that kind of stuff, which is great. Conversion to what? Exactly. Is that a belief that Hindu is intrinsically right and Indian? So to be Hindu is to be right. And it also means to be Hindu means to be Indian, because that's what it seems to say. It's a nationalistic claim, and it's a righteous claim that Hinduism is superior to other traditions. That's a very interesting claim, because I don't see that made in any of the texts. The texts are about an inquiry into truth, wherever you may find it, and it leaves the individual find their own truth, so wherever they may find it. It has that liberalism, and it leaves choice. So it's not primacy of practice, now also we have primacy of choice. So we have two issues that if you take away choice, that doesn't begin to sound good. It doesn't begin to sound Indian in a more traditional sense, you could say, even before India existed, as you say.
Don't you think it's based on a belief that they were born Hindus and that's why we're reconverting them back to what they were? Do you think that's their belief?
Well, the thing is, you'd have to question what being born a Hindu in the 12th century meant.
No, I mean these people who are trying to reconvert people now.
Yeah.
Who have become Christian or...
Yeah, well, also their assumption is that in the good old days, everyone was a Hindu. People didn't see it like that in the good old days. We know that from the texts. And a lot, yeah, and a lot of people were Buddhists. So, and a lot of people were Jains, and a lot of people had no specific religion at all, as is the case today. I meet Hindus and they don't have any particular religious affiliation. They just say, I'm a Hindu. What do you mean a Hindu? Well, you know, I go to Janmashtami once a year. Or something. They do Raksha Bandhan. So I'm just saying, what does it mean? Conversion to what? And what is the historical record? It's really not as clear as that, I don't think. Is this belief model not just a response to Christian mission? Because it's a belief model. It's not a practice model. They're not asking them to practice anything. They're just asking them to sign up and say, I am a Hindu. Whatever that means remains ill-defined. And it's not based on practice, which is actually quite defined. And imitation is the best form of praise. So in actual fact, even though they're trying to respond positively to Christianity, they're saying that Christianity is the big church and we're the small church and we're learning from you. So if you just analyze what's actually going on. So the Christian model has taken leadership in this discourse. That would be my analysis. It's open to discussion. But also, what then of Ashoka? We say we go back to the India as it used to be. Ashoka was a Hindu who became a Buddhist, and all of India practically became Buddhist at that time. What about Chandragupta Maurya, another great king, who became a Jain, and had huge influence, a mass conversion into Jainism, and big discourse at the time between Brahmins and Jains and Brahmins and different sects, the Vaishnavites, the Shaivites, and the Jains and the Buddhists. A lot of discourse, philosophical discourse going back and forth. So conversion was definitely an issue in ancient India. And it wasn't just simply that it was just a land full of Hindus. It really wasn't as simple as that. And what of the 2,000-year-old Indian Christian presence of people who chose to become Christians 2,000 years ago? Should they become Hindu again because 2,000 years ago one of their forefathers was a Hindu? Well, in actual fact, we don't know. It could have been a Buddhist. So we're going to reconvert them? And that's an issue. 1,000 years ago, people were becoming Muslims. Are we going to say that 1,000 years isn't good enough? That's not enough choice. We haven't had enough time to reconsider this. These are issues. These are questions that need to be asked in terms of conversion, reconversion. And, of course, what about the Farsis? Are we going to reconvert the Farsis? Or how many did Farsis convert? Did they just all come from the Middle East? Or what are the, because they're Indian, they should be Hindus? Or how do you negotiate that? Tribal religions. You go to the tribal areas. You never hear anyone talking about their religion. Pretty funky stuff. If you want to broaden the horizons of Indian religion, they have very interesting practices of Naga worship and all kinds of things that some people say is just superstitious, but it's precious to them. Is that Indian? Were they Hindu? In fact, there's no historical record of them ever having been Hindu in any discernible way. Definitely Indian and definitely borrowing from this and that, but Brahmins never went to their village. They never heard Sanskrit. So there are issues there as well. Now, Professor Arvind Sharma in Canada says that Hindus very much engage in mission, always have done, but that they don't proselytize. That's his claim. Proselytize means, it has come to mean forcibly, aggressively missionize. Certainly Hindus visited Burma, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and these countries became very influenced by Hinduism and Buddhism in succession. When I say very influenced, they were conquered by Hindu states, and huge temple complexes were built, and they weren't built for nothing. People were worshipping there, and people still continue to worship. You go into Bangkok airport, and there's a huge, big model of the churning of the Milk Ocean, and huge, big dioramas of the Ramayana. These are their national stories. This is the extent of the influence. Sanskrit is a revered language in these countries. Buddhist monks are revered in these countries. So it's all examples of the influence of Indian culture and Indian philosophy and Indian religion. So someone converted someone. Something happened. Now, should India, with all integrity, support a movement for those people to de-Hinduize? Because, was it right to go there and convert them like that? So the conversion issue, Hindus are arch converters. They're very good at it, been very successful indeed. There's a 12th century Shaivite text called the Pariva Puranam, which speaks of violence in the name of Shiva, very much jihad, against Jains. These things were going on. This is in the texts. So we know that these things were discussed. Did they go on in big movements? No, it wasn't huge, but there were fights, and a lot of people did die. We know that. There were intersectarian fights going on, and we don't talk about it very much because, we keep these things in the family. It's a very, very Indian tradition, isn't it? Domestic violence and abuse and all that. Don't talk about it. Yeah, you've done very well to keep it out of the news. But the fact is, if we look into it, these things are there. Now, is it the essence of Hinduism? No. Is it normal when people, take things too seriously and all that? Yes. The normal course of life? Yes, absolutely. And you find that in many of the sampradayas, and there's a lot of talk about Sanatana Dharma, and it's not sampradaya-based and all this stuff. The sampradayas are the basis of the understanding of Sanatana Dharma. So these sampradayas are actually very important parts of the history and are still the most influential aspects of Hinduism. So you can't cut them out of the loop as easily as that. The sampradayas are very clear that only they really understand the truth. That's crystal clear. The Vaishnavas, the Shaivites, the Shaktas, the Smartas, the Advaitins, they've all got their angle, and they all make an issue of it, and they all have a hierarchy as to who's right and who's wrong, and it's crystal clear who's at the top and who's at the bottom. And if you talk to one, it's them, and if you talk to another, it's definitely not them, not those ones. But when we bore down, we see that who they are, we find that they are members whose practice is most sincere. So when they say that they really understand the truth, and they have their hierarchies and everything like that, but it's very interesting that it's the practice of it's the practitioners that become the sadhus.